What if I told you that Jesus wasn't the only religious leader whose followers claimed that he rose from the dead and appeared to them afterwards? Today, we're going to be exploring 6 religious figures from the last century and a half whose post-death reappearances are far better attested than Christ. We begin with the mystical tale of Lobsang Rampa, a Tibetan monk so spiritually advanced that he literally drilled a hole in his forehead in order to unlock his third eye. He convinced his followers he possessed clairvoyance, could read auras, astral project, and claimed he even had casual encounters with yetis during his past life adventures in Tibet. What? And people bought it. Literally, his books flew off the shelves, selling 300,000 copies in just 18 months, 500,000 by year 2. He created a global spiritual phenomenon whose devoted fans genuinely believed that their master had transcended the boundaries of the physical realm, and even the boundaries between life and death. See, after he passed in 1981, his followers reported glowing astral visitations, prophetic dreams,
hello there,
and spiritual communications from their departed master. They weren't claiming that he just lived on metaphorically in their hearts. They were insisting that he was actively guiding them from beyond the veil, appearing in ethereal form to dispense wisdom from the great beyond, a spiritual teacher appearing after death, validating his divine authority. There is just one glaring problem. See, 23 years before his death, Scotland Yard and Tibetologist Heinrich Harrer, the same Heinrich Harrer who Brad Pitt's character was based off of in the movie 7 Years in Tibet, did a little bit of digging and discovered that Lobsang Rompa was actually a British plumber's son from Devon named Cyril Hoskin. He had never set foot in Tibet and he couldn't speak a word of Tibetan. When confronted with this rather inconvenient truth, did Hoskin confess to the con? Of course not. He doubled down, claiming that a Tibetan monk's spirit had possessed him after he fell out of a tree and suffered a concussion. And somehow none of this fazed his followers. In fact, to this day, decades after Hoskin shuffled off this mortal coil, believers continue reporting mystical encounters with their transcendent teacher. The movement persists, fueled by these miraculous post-mortem appearances and the unwavering conviction that their pipe-fitting prophet really did achieve immortality. Number 2. Sai Baba of Shirdi. If you were to go back just over a century to the Indian city of Shirdi, you would find a barefoot religious ascetic wandering the streets, radiating divine wisdom, attracting an ocean of followers who literally believed he could do anything. Healing the sick with a glance, multiplying food, reading minds, controlling the weather, and even occasionally just vanishing into thin air. Because he wasn't seen as just a prophet or another wise teacher. His followers were convinced that he was an actual avatar of a god walking among them. God made manifest in the flesh. So vast was his influence that he became a kind of unifying force between Hindus and Muslims. Both worshipped him at their temples and mosques. He spoke in parables, blessed people with a touch, and even claimed that he had control over death itself, telling people the exact date he would leave his body. So when he finally passed in 1918, his devotees refused to accept that he was actually gone. Immediately after his death, the faithful started reporting that Sai Baba was appearing to them, first in dreams and visions, then in actual physical form. There are multiple accounts of him walking through the streets of Shirdi, alive and well, having entire conversations with people and physically healing them. And I'm talking years after he was freaking buried. Soon, his tomb became a pilgrimage site, not to honor a dead saint, but to encounter a living one. The resurrection stories were so persistent and widespread that the idea that he had merely passed on never really caught on with his followers. Even now, over a century later, followers still report visions, answered prayers, and divine interventions directly from Sai Baba of Shirdi. Temples dedicated to him perform daily rituals as if he's physically present. They're not honoring the dead. These aren't memorials. They act as if he's physically present, because to them, they're not chasing a memory. They're following a man who conquered death itself. Sai Baba's posthumous appearances have only strengthened his movement. Today, he's one of the most popular saints in India, with countless millions of devotees worldwide who are absolutely convinced that their guru is still active, working miracles from beyond the grave.
Don't believe me? Here is literally India's Prime Minister Modi paying homage to Sai Baba of Shirdi earlier this year. Unlike Sai Baba of Shirdi's followers, you probably won't be having a conversation with the dead anytime soon. But you could be chatting with a living, breathing Italian, or ordering a croissant in perfect French in a Parisian boulangerie. And for that, I recommend my favorite language learning app and today's sponsor, LingoPie. I've been learning new languages my entire life, and this is by far my favorite way to do it. Here's the idea. Instead of slogging through grammar or rote learning with tedious drills, LingoPie lets you learn by watching real TV shows and movies from the country whose language you're studying. You are fully immersed, but with help. Every subtitle is clickable for instant translation, and it automatically saves new words as flashcards that you can review later. It even has an AI coach that explains tricky grammar in context, and a pronunciation tool that listens to you speak and gives feedback on your accent. It's kind of like having a language tutor hiding inside of your favorite show. I love it so much that I actually bought their lifetime subscription long before they asked to sponsor the channel, because it's easily one of the smartest and most enjoyable learning tools I've come across. There are over 3,000 shows across 14 different languages. So whatever you're into, drama, comedies, thrillers, you're learning naturally while being entertained. If you've ever wanted to learn a new language, but you hated traditional study methods, it's probably because they weren't fun enough. But LingoPie is. So click the link below for a 7-day free trial, plus a special 55% discount on an annual plan.
Number 3, Sri Ramakrishna. Sai Baba of Shirdi was hardly the only resurrected religious figure in India. Hell, born just 2 years before Sai Baba was Ramakrishna, a man so overcome with religious ecstasy that he would literally freeze mid-sentence, collapse into trances, or stare unblinking into space for hours at a time, as if his entire body would short-circuit every time the divine came near. His devotees didn't just see him as enlightened or wise, they were convinced that they were witnessing a god incarnate. Deja vu. He claimed that he could speak directly to the goddess Kali and absorb the sins of others. Rather than just preach religious unity, he claimed to actually become one with each religion, practicing Hinduism one day, Islam the next, then Christianity, by entering altered states where he would directly commune with God in each form. His followers said that he lived with one foot in this world and one in the next, halfway to transcendence. So when throat cancer took him in 1886, his disciples refused to see it as the end. Ramakrishna had, after all, seeded their expectations with promises that he would return to guide them. So almost immediately, his followers began seeing visions of him. Then, full-blown encounters, claiming that he appeared physically, taught new lessons, and gave direct instructions. His most famous disciple, Swami Vivekananda, said that Ramakrishna repeatedly visited him at critical moments in his mission, through vivid sensory experiences that felt completely real. Today, the Ramakrishna Math and Mission operates worldwide, performing daily rituals as if he's physically present. His room remains a shrine where devotees still claim encounters. Millions are absolutely convinced that their guru transcended death and continues guiding them, all fueled by their unshaken belief that for this God-man, death was merely a suggestion, a minor inconvenience.
Oh hey, there's Modi again, this time paying homage to Ramakrishna. Damn, you really get around, you little slut.
Number 4, Swami Vivekananda. Ironically enough, Ramakrishna's follower, Swami Vivekananda, also grew to prominence as an Indian religious leader. And after he died, he grew a huge following. And when he passed, his followers also claimed that he had overcome death. They encountered him in dreams and visions, or felt his presence there among them. So I guess the point is that post-death experiences with a dearly loved mentor or religious figure, whether in the form of grief hallucinations, visions, dreams, or even anecdotal anecdotes that spread and evolve about physical reappearances, these aren't unique to one religion. None of these Indian gurus were Jesus copycats. Their followers weren't even Christian. They simply genuinely believed that their master had transcended death. However, each of these Indian gurus themselves did attract copycats. For example, just 8 years after Sai Baba of Shirdi died, Satya Sai Baba was born. This guru claimed to be the reincarnation of Sai Baba of Shirdi himself. He drew gigantic crowds, performed miracles, and even allegedly raised people from the dead. Now, many of his alleged miracles have been caught on camera and have been exposed as cheap parlor tricks or sleight of hand. And despite prophesying the wrong date for his own death, he still has as many as potentially 100 million followers to this day, some of whom claim that he has physically appeared to them after his death. I'm beginning to think that in India, resurrected godmen are something of a banality. Meanwhile, Christianity hasn't seen another Jesus in almost 2,000 years. That is, unless you count Haile Selassie. If you flipped on the news in 1930, you'd have seen what looked like just another coronation, the crowning of Ethiopia's new emperor. But to a growing movement in Jamaica, this wasn't politics. It was a fulfilled prophecy. They weren't watching an ordinary human rise to power. To them, Haile Selassie was literally God himself arriving on earth. When Selassie was crowned as the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, titles which were all pulled from the book of Revelation, Rastafarians viewed it as the literal second coming of Jesus. The Messiah had returned, and he was a black African king. To give you context, just 10 years earlier, the Pan-Africanist Marcus Garvey had prophesied, "Look to Africa when a black king shall be crowned, for the day of deliverance is at hand." And now the prophecy was being fulfilled. Reports spread that Selassie could heal the sick, that bullets couldn't pierce him. He had supernatural power. Africa was rising, Babylon was falling, and God walked among them. Then, in 1975, Selassie died. But Rastafarians refused to accept it, insisting that it was some kind of conspiracy or test, that he'd faked his death or ascended to heaven. Soon reports poured in of sightings, people claiming that he was alive in Ethiopia, others describing vivid dreams, visions, and spiritual encounters where Selassie spoke and blessed them. Even now, 50 years later, many Rastafarians still insist that he never died, because how can a god die? Far from collapsing, his movement exploded globally through reggae music, with Bob Marley spreading the gospel of Jah worldwide.
Fools say in their heart, Rasta your God is dead.
See, Christ promised that he will return within 2,000 years, and him say when him come, he will be the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the conquering Lion of Judah, through the lineage of King Solomon and King David. So when the revelation turned out that Haile Selassie is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, coming straight through the lineage of King Solomon and King David, then we really know that this is a Christ return.
Millions still worship Selassie, praying to him daily, wearing his image, speaking of him as actively present. To them, he is a divine king who disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and he continues to be cited by his followers who are convinced that their God still walks among them. Now, it's easy for most of us to dismiss these stories and claims outright. If we were brought up in the West and we haven't been indoctrinated into one of these movements, so we're not emotionally bought in, then when we have the big picture, it's easy to see that these stories are all clearly BS. And yet, in the West at least, when told nearly identical tales of Jesus post-death reappearances, somehow we give them zero scrutiny. We don't so much as raise an eyebrow. Religious apologists will assume that Jesus literally did rise from the dead, claiming that it's the only way to make sense of all of the somewhat hazy 2,000-year-old, totally not contentious pseudepigraphal accounts. And non-Christians will usually push back by claiming that the accounts are myths or legends, or that people hallucinate, stories change and grow, storytellers fabricate, misremember, and even deliberately embellish sometimes. But there's one more particular religious case of post-death reappearances that highlights another possibility that no one is talking about. And it gives us a unique window into an extraordinary aspect of human psychology. For that, we turn to the wacky disappearing act of Francis Schlatter, the vanishing Messiah. But we'll have to cover that in my next video. So make sure that you're subscribed, click the notification bell, and I will see you there. If you guys appreciate videos like this, your support is what allows me to do this full time. So if you want to support more videos like this, you can make either a per video pledge on patreon.com/holykoolaid or a one-time PayPal donation. Thank you guys so much. And as always, dare to be curious, but don't drink the Kool-Aid.